and, hopefully talk about, well, I know we're going to talk about what we could do to attract the next generation of HVAC engineers and technicians, or anybody in the HVAC business for that matter. And I love this topic. Greg and I did a show on this before. I've been on a show with Andrew. Michael and I have talked about this in person many times. And I think it's important in our industry. And, a lot of our audience is mechanical engineers. We do have a healthy base of mechanical contractors as well. But, at first I was like, well, we're really geared more towards engineers. I don't know if this is an applicable topic. And then, Greg and I were talking, well, I've talked to everybody about this, but we're so affected by the trades. No matter if you touch the construction business, oh my gosh. So we're going to get into that in a minute. But before we do, I'd love to introduce our guests. So I got Greg Crumpton here. He's the VP at Service Logic. I've got Andrew Brown, who's the CEO of ToolFetch, and Michael Morris, who is our VP of Operations at Insight Partners and Hobbs. So I'd love for you guys to introduce yourself, talk about what you got going on for a minute. If you got ways to connect with you, that's great. Greg, why don't you go first for us, buddy?
Hey, well, first of all, Tony, thanks for putting this on. You've had a great day. I've been in and out all day looking at all the content that you guys are providing, and really, really good stuff for the industry. I know a lot of people enjoy the catch-up hours at the end of the year because, like me, we get so busy and then we have to kind of crunch at the end. So I know it's much appreciated. The topic is so real. Everything we do, everything we touch, all evolves somebody having to build something, put something together, or service it. And Andrew and I talked about this on my podcast that, everything in your house, you go to the restroom, you open the refrigerator, whatever, and he's got a great example of a guy working on his washing or his clothes dryer. It's so important that we talk about it, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk. Service Logic company I work for, we have a lot of skilled trades technicians, but we never have enough. So we're always looking for ways to energize the youth and or the returning military to get involved with our industry. So proud to be here.
Thank you, Greg. Andrew, why don't you give us an introduction, buddy?
Sure. Tony, it's great to be here, and you look refreshed. If you've been going all day, you look good. You look good. I'm happy to be here with Greg and Michael and the audience. Just as Greg said, skilled trades touches everything in our lives. What I am standing in right now with my little studio, with the lights, the computers, network, everything surrounding me is all the skilled trades, and they keep everything up and running. Everything we touch, I get in my car, I go over a bridge, I go over, through a tunnel, I go to work, I'm in a building. It's all touched by the skilled trades. And it's such an important, piece of the puzzle to keep our skilled trades flourished, and to keep getting, hopefully, the next generation of younger kids interested in the trades. And we need to do a better job on the messaging side to keep getting people into the trades. And that's why I keep kind of showing up on video and messaging, pounding sort of the drum of the same message about sort of the benefits of the trades. And, we work in my business, and being CEO of ToolFetch, which is an industrial distributor, I'm always talking to electricians and welders and people in HVAC and other trades. And it's amazing what they do. It's amazing what they put themselves through. And I'm hopeful that, we can continue on and get more people into the trades.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for being here. Appreciate it. So Michael Morris and I work for the same company. We both work at Hobbs and Associates and Insight Partners, and we help other brands in our network too. And, I was on a job site the other day, and where was I? In Norfolk, in one of the Hobbs offices, and I was recording a 90-ton Aeon package unit. And I was thinking, how many trades go into getting that unit on the site, from mining the ore to manufacturing the compressors to, starting up thousands of them, right? So the trades just affect us in all aspects of life. So what's your experience been in the HVAC business with the trades?
Yeah, first of all, Tony, thanks for having me and you guys putting all this on. And I'm humbled for the opportunity to be on with this great panel to discuss something that's a topic that is dear to me. I'm a product of the trades. I went through the CTE programs work in the field and work my way into the position that I'm at now. And this industry has been very good for me. And so I'm very passionate about it. To your point about that 90-ton rooftop, not just what trades went into building it, but actually putting it on the roof was the structural steel guy that had to build the steel and the deck and the roof, the electrician that had to power it, the roofing guy that was going to mesh to the curb. So many people that get involved in what we take for granted for every day, going to a store to shop or a place of business that we go to, and that infrastructure that we're blessed to be in. And so, yes, this is very real. I would tell you, in the state of Virginia, I actually had a meeting yesterday with the governor's deputy director of workforce development, that the state of Virginia is taking a huge position to help this, because they see the problem. And she asked me, is this something that really had just happened during COVID, that's some of what she's heard, or what did I think? And I told her that I thought that this was probably on the horizon 10 to 12 years ago. The baby boomers were such a big piece of the construction market. And I think we knew that this would eventually come, but we kept, as an industry as a whole, not just HVAC, but construction, kept kicking the can down the road, thinking the baby boomers are going to be who they've been all along, which is die with a hammer in their hand or a meter in their hand and just keep working. And then COVID came and accelerated that process quickly, and it put us in an intersection where we have experienced a construction boom that's probably the biggest post World War II, with a labor market that is descending at the greater pace, opposite directions. And so it's a great opportunity. It's something that is going to affect us all, whether we directly in this industry or not, in what we pay for things. We talk about inflation. Inflation is affecting all of us, but when the cost to build things and do things, because of supply and demand, our core principles of our economy take into play, then it's going to affect even people that aren't in our industry. So this is a big deal, and I'm very passionate about it.
Excellent. And for your first live podcast, you're doing amazing. So thank you for joining us.
No doubt. He's a star in the making, Tony.
I mean, I'm like, holy smokes. I might have a co-pilot here. Yeah, so great. So awesome. So let's talk about the trades, and I will touch on, because my experience, I didn't come up in the trades, work with the trades all the time, but my experience has been more on the sales side and the engineering side. So I'll contribute to that, which is almost the same kind of situation of there's not much of an awareness out there from an engineering standpoint when you're in college and stuff like that. So when we're talking about attracting the next generation, let's talk about what that means, because I get confused constantly. Am I Gen X? Am I millennial? What the heck am I? I know I'm not a boomer. So this is kind of a chart where I tell you, so where I fit in this is Gen X. So I was born within that range, 1971 to be specific. So I'm in the Gen X range. Andrew, where do you fit on that? Where are you falling in on this chart?
Gen X.
Okay. Greg?
I am the last year of boomer. I was born in July of '64. So I'm right on the tail end of being a boomer. I think, I have more Gen X tendencies, especially regarding technology and kind of my thought processes. But my work ethic, I take a lot from my predecessors in the boomer range. So I'm kind of right there on the fence.
Excellent. Michael, care to share your?
Yeah, I was born in '76. I'm a ride in the back of the truck with the dog, proud Gen X toter. So
I love it. So I guess we would all agree the next generation would probably fall under the millennials and the Gen Z. Like anybody that is 38 and under ish. I see Courtney in the background. She's like waving her arms. I don't know where she fits in here, but
she's making my comments, Tony, is what she's doing.
That's right. Oh. Okay, so somebody very wise sent me this slide a few days ago on social media. So thank you, Greg, for sending this. But I thought this was, very applicable to conversation today. So we're talking about attracting the next generation. We have a message we want to tell people, right? My experience is you got to tell people where they're at, right? Like putting an ad in the white pages or in the newspaper, probably isn't going to tell a whole lot of people, right? Running a billboard may tell some people, but where are the people hanging out today? And there's a dotted line there, which shows, Gen X, which most of us fall under, was basically on the computer, The millennials are on the smartphones, which is where my kids fall. Gen Z, well, actually, my kids are Gen Z, but they're not on virtual reality much. So the point of this slide to me is the technology, where the kids are at today is on the mobile, right? On the mobile devices. What's y'all's experience with that, with the younger generation, Greg?
Tony, I sent you this slide because I've studied a lot, probably the last 18 months. I've really spent a lot of time understanding different communication styles for different age groups of people. One of my tasks at Service Logic is communicating with all of our safety officers across the country. And those safety officers, there's 50 of them, but yeah, they have to reach about 6,600 people, somewhere in that ballpark of where we are headcount wise. It's very important to understand how to communicate a message in a language or with the vocabulary and the vernacular that people understand. So you can have the same message, but yet you have to deliver it across these six different generations. You really have to think about how you're communicating, not just the device. So it's a matter of the messaging, the messenger, and the receiver of that message. So super important topic of how you get the message across. And, I think that video wins right now. And Andrew can attest to this, and Michael probably as well. When you're looking at content or when people are watching your content, they're going to engage much more than that with that, as opposed to an email or a lengthy article. So communicating with current technology seems to be what works well.
Excellent. Good segue into, if you want to follow quick, very impactful videos, check out Andrew on LinkedIn. And by the way, all the guests on here, if you scroll down, if you're watching this live on our website, there's links to their LinkedIn. You go check that out. Andrew does a great job of very short, quick, impactful videos. And I think those are important. I told my son the other day, hey, you could upload a 10-minute video to TikTok. And he looked at me and said, who would watch a 10-minute video? And I was like, oh my gosh, that's it. Like, right. Andrew, what are you saying about that?
We live in a 3-second world. You have, and
it's so true.
I'm not joking.
It's so true. Yeah.
You have 3 seconds to make an impact.
Yep.
2 or 3 seconds where someone is scrolling through the feeds. And that's what my kids are younger. They're on YouTube Shorts. And, do I truly want them on social media? Look, it just happens that way. Most of their friends are, but they're engaging in these short form videos. And like you said, I try to do that, and I try to engage and try to capture people's attentions. But you can have the greatest message in the world, but if you can't capture someone's attention, it's not going to come across. Exactly. And you need to get into the hearts and soul of the younger generation. A lot of them are caught up on wages. I see this quite often, that it's not a lot of money. Maybe I can be a social media, influencer. That's a better option. They don't want to put the time and effort into it. It's hard work, that type of stuff. But I think we need to share success stories with kids. What is possible in the trades, right? Coming up in the trades, people in trade school should be putting out information to kids. And this is something I'm going to be doing for 2024, is interviewing more of the younger generation, kids in trade school, kids just coming out of trade school, and sharing what their stair step has been to get to where they need to get to from a success standpoint. But it's capturing the attention. That's where kids are. They're on their iPad, they're on their iPhone, their Android device, and you really need to capture their attention in all the platforms. And that's the way that you'll get someone's sort of attention to say, hey, wait. I'm thinking about this college thing, but wait, this trades thing looks good. So we need to share all the benefits and everything that goes along with the trades.
100%. Yeah, in marketing, we say our biggest asset is attention, right? Like the message is important, obviously, but a lot of the content we share, and it's the same thing. It's just how we share it and where we share it. It makes all the difference in the world. So, Michael, where's the young kids hanging out? Social media, your experience with that?
Yeah, so mine are 25 and 20. And so Andrew, to your point for those interviews, I think a good segment is to get that 24, 25, 26-year-old that did the trade right out of high school instead of college, and then just lay a graph of where that person is in his or her life versus the person that chose the college path, and what their income to debt ratio is, and paths of that nature, because information, as we all agreed, is quick and short to these guys. Back to Greg's point in the communication, I've been through a litany of leadership development classes, and we always talked about the 4 social styles: the driver, the expressive, the amiable, and the analytical, and how to be successful in communication, that you needed to know where you lied and then who you were communicating with. So if you're an analytical, you needed to provide data. If you're expressive, hey, I got this. And amiable, they were concerned about their feelings. Drivers just wanted to get things done. Well, now that's expanded really across all those generations that you put up. Me being a Gen Xer, the 4 of us can communicate, and we all kind of know where each other's coming from and our styles and things of that nature. As you get into the millennials and the Zs, to Andrew and Greg's point of the short, all of us get on YouTube, and I've got no problem sitting down watching a 35-minute video about a guy clearing land or building a house or doing anything. And I'll go talk to my 25 and 20-year-olds, and I'll be like, hey, did you see RR Builders video on that pole building structure that they were doing? They're like, oh yeah, Dad, I saw it on the short. Back to Andrew's point.
Right,
like
right.
I got what you got in 35 minutes
Sure.
in a 32-second short. And I feel like they didn't get the same thing I did, but that's it. We've got to be quick, concise. That we used to call it in our generation that elevator speech, right? If you got in the elevator with the CEO, what was going to be your 30 seconds that could get you to the C-suite? And that's it. I mean, us understanding who we are, the challenges in communication that we have, not being square peg, round hole, thinking that we as Xers or baby boomers are going to change a millennial or a Z. How do we flex our style to them and get the same passion that we experience in our trade and every day? Or what I tell all the guys that work for us, your why. And I can share a story about that later, but your why, how do we convey that to the next 2 generations of people so that they have the same passion about what we do in their future?
Oh, I love it. Good
Well
stuff,
said,
guys. Yeah, so we'll hit that for sure in a minute. The self-awareness, I think, is so super important as you start, especially young, as you start your career. And Greg and I were talking about this the other day. Like, you got to work a lot. Unless you are lucky and you don't have to work, but I've had to work a lot, and I think everybody on here has. And you want to do something that aligns with what you enjoy, and you follow kind of your heart, and you don't want to do. I mean, my big pitch to my kids and young people I talk to is, follow what you try it before you buy it. Try things out, do things, and don't steer yourself in one direction because of societal pressures, right? Especially and I can tell you, I experienced a little of that in engineering school about going into sales. It was kind of looked down upon, and I think some of the trades get that bad rap too, which I think is completely unfair. My dad was a trades guy, and I grew up working with him. And so I threw this stat up here, kind of shift gears a little bit and talk more a little bit specifically about the industry that a couple of us are in. The HVAC industry. So this article came out earlier this year. It says 290,000 HVAC technicians work in the U.S. with approximately 110,000 unfilled HVAC tech jobs. 23,000 are retiring each year. In 5 years, there'll be 1.8 jobs for every willing technician. That might be true now. I don't know. And it's been that way for, it seems like, a while now. Greg, what's your experience with this? I mean, it's tough, finding the right people.
It is, Tony. It is. And I think a couple of things about it. I spend a lot of my headspace on this question, whether I'm talking about it or just walking around mumbling to myself. We have to change the stigma of people thinking that skilled trades are a dirty, loud, nasty kind of environment. Mm-hmm. To your point, yes, there is hard work involved, but it's not, when people picture HVAC, sometimes all they know is the vision of them climbing around in someone's attic. And, I've been in this business for 41 years. I've never been paid to be in an attic. I've always worked in a commercial and industrial setting. So it's my job to help educate people about the different types of opportunities. Now, two more things about that. The number one group of people that are being hired right now, or at least last month, were 65-year-old people coming back into the workforce. So that really makes me wonder a couple of things, obviously, like, are these folks, they retired a while and they realize they really do enjoy working and they're coming back maybe at a different pace, or maybe they're coming back part-time. But we are able right now to hang on to some of that tribal knowledge that is retiring. I think you showed 23,000 per year. There's a lot of common, or a lot of tribal knowledge, a lot of industrial and industry knowledge that can be transferred to a younger generation in the form of mentoring. And I think that's really important that we grasp that. And anybody that does have no hair or gray hair really needs to start mentoring on a really intentional, in an intentional way, because it's super important that we do that. The other thing that I think people are finally coming to realize is you have to grow your own talent. You have to have a career path for the two generations, the millennials and the Ys. These folks want to know what a career looks like. It's not just a job. They don't want to come over there and bust their tail for you without any vision of what can be. So I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure we're communicating the message of what they can achieve, helping them achieve what they want to, and education with technology and all the current, niceties. So I think those are important that we relay to that.
Yeah, 100%. So Andrew, what's your opinion on how do we get the information to them in social that's a way like that is real to what goes on in the trades, right? Like if someone wants to learn about HVAC, what it's like in the field, social media, a good way to learn that, right?
Social media, but to Greg's point of having a mentor or having some sort of training, and making sure that the people that are leaving. The scary thing is that the amount of people that are leaving each and every trade. It's not just HVAC, it's welding, it's plumbing. I mean, you could do it. There's a number of deep dives that you can do, and it's a really scary thought that I don't want to wait 4 weeks for a plumber where I just had a boiler problem and I had no heat in my house. And luckily, my oil guy came over. And the thing is, we got to talking, me and him. He's like, well, we can't find anybody. I'm like, well, what am I going to do when something goes down? He's like, he's looking at me like, what do you, and we're looking at each other. Why is this happening? What's happening? And he said to me, he's like, well, we might get some people in, but they're not going to be highly skilled. The skill level is going to go down, which is another scary thought. So there's a lot of different things kind of going on behind the scenes. The same example that Greg brought up about my dryer going out. There's a guy that comes over and he's the guy. He can listen and know exactly what to fix. And he told me, he said the same thing. I have no debt and I make good money. I don't work that hard and nobody wants to take my job over. So what happens? That goes away. Then you compound that. And I'm just like, you can't get things fixed and everything's more expensive. That $100 an hour is not too far-fetched for someone in the trades, right? Which is good for the people in the trades. It's not good for the homeowner. So everything that's surrounding you in your home is going to get more expensive because there's not enough people to fix XYZ. So again, really go back to your question about social media. It really is getting the right message about the trades, not trying to get away from that old adage that it's option B for the bad kids. Well, if you don't succeed, you can always go to the trades. it also comes back to the parents, what's spoken about in households. Because what's spoken about with parents, they might push kids to a 4-year college degree and not even the option of the skilled trades is not even on the table.
Mm-hmm.
So I think parents need the right information, guidance counselors need the right information, teachers need the right information. It's there, but I don't think it's being spoken about enough. You have parents coming home and saying to their kids, I had to work hard with my hands so you don't have to. There's a lot of that going on. So there's a lot of mismessaging going on. It's getting better with everything that we're doing, but I still feel that we have a long way to go. But I do not want to see our trades get to a point where we just can't fix fill in the blank. And I hope it doesn't go that direction. But with that 40% retiring, we need to have a lot of work to do.
Good. Well said. And especially going that way for the reason of people just fear out of stigma, right? Like not following something. Cause I know a lot of guys in the trades who they truly enjoy what they do. Like they wouldn't have it any other way. They love being out in the field. Every day is different. Everything's a challenge. You get that sense of one of the things I don't get at this job is like that sense of completeness when you're done with a project, you're done with the piping or the wiring or whatever. It just looks nice. And there's a lot of people who live for that and they truly enjoy that. And, your story resonated with me. My dad he came from the generation where if you got a chance to go to college, oh my gosh, you better go to college, but that's how he grew up. He grew up with nothing and he came from nothing. So it was like a big thing for him. And I did go the college route, but I tell my kids, follow your heart. If you want to go try this, if that's what you want to do, I'm 100% behind you, right? Like if you want to go into the skilled trades or whatever, if you want to go follow my footsteps in marketing, that's great too, whatever. Because self-awareness to me is so super important because life's short. I mean, you don't want to be miserable your whole life doing something because your cousin was making fun of you and you don't want to go into that trade. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, we were in a sort of a generation where these skills are not there anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of kids don't know how to read a tape measure coming out of school. Some of these basic things, math, the technology is starting sort of to take over and it's becoming a lost art, all these different things. And I don't want to see that happen. I really don't. But
Yeah,
we're being
me
so
neither.
reliant on technology and everything. But again, going back to, well, things don't work. Well, who are you going to go to if there's not enough people in the trades to fix it? There's no AI or robot yet that will come fix the plumbing in my house, my boilers.
It's funny about this comment, Michael, I'd like to get your take on this. So I get this all the time from people not in industry mostly is, AI is coming, it's going to eliminate the needs for the trades. Now, in our business, I can tell you the more complex that the equipment gets, the more there's need for, people in the trades who are educated. Michael, what's your experience on the technology in HVAC has gotten to the point where, you got to be technical to work on this stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's a selling point. Actually, I mean, the way it's gotten, it's not like it was before. And the AI piece. I was talking to a guy the other day who was a regional, basically manager for AutoZone, and he was talking about how in the last 4 years, all the AutoZone locations, the workforce inside of them has shrinked in half, and it's going to shrink in half again because they're going to a kiosk robot type soul set for it. And I said, hey, I don't see that as a bad thing because somebody's got to work on the robot. The robot and the conveyors aren't always going to be perfect. And so there's going to be a shift, all the time. But, heating and air conditioning is something, back to Andrew's point, what I loved about heating and air conditioning was it wrapped a litany of trades into one. Heating and air conditioning, obviously, electrical is a huge part of what we do, controls, all of that, engineering, knowing how things work, sequence of operation, plumbing. There's not much at my house that I can't do on my own, if rubber met the road, that I couldn't fix or install or do at my home myself. Now I can choose to pay somebody else to do it, but I have the knowledge to be able to do that because of the trade. And, to the point earlier about, how we're going to attack this, I think, one of the things that's happened over the last couple of decades has been a kid gets to high school, and even if they had the option of a CTE program, it really didn't come to light to them to their junior or senior year in high school where they had kind of made the decision that maybe I'm not going to go to college, and so I'm trying to fill an elective or things of that nature. I'm heavily involved with the CTE programs locally here in Richmond, Virginia. And one of the things that I've pushed for them is we need to talk about career paths in middle school. People that, and because it's not just us, nurses, all of those, getting these kids when there's not the stigma. In 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, if you're in the HVAC class, I mean, raise your hand if you took shop in middle school, and all the cool kids were in there too. I mean, in middle school, it's not that big of a deal. In high school, it's when the stigmas start coming about. And so you introduce kids to the feelings of sense of accomplishment, building something, having a task in front of you and doing it. And you get them before those stigmas happen. And then they spend 4 years going, hey, I may want to spend my time doing that instead of those last two, 11th and 12th grades, making that decision. And to Greg's point, and I love it, I'm a huge sports guy. I'm passionate about coaching and giving back. And he made a comment in his segment talking about growing your own. And that's something I've preached for 15 years. I can be the Yankees and go out and try to hire talent, or I can get 1 or 2 really good free agents and get 5 or 6 young kids that I'm not buying their bad traits. I'm not buying, and I'm growing them the Hobbs way or the Insight way of doing things. And so in the Richmond market alone is an example of what Hobbs and Insight's working to do. 1/3 of our Richmond workforce is all under the age of 25, that all started through an internship program in their senior year in a CTE institute at one of the local school systems and then we're finishing through their apprenticeship and stuff with them to that grow your own. And so I think it takes the data-driven stuff. I think it takes the social media. I think it takes the school systems and the home lives, to get these kids involved in its earlier. We grew up in a time that don't rush to make a decision. Well, in middle school, these kids are experiencing in middle school what we experience in 10th, 11th grade. And so getting them involved in that time in the 7th and 8th grades with what potential trade paths could be is going to be huge to the long-term success of changing the narrative and swinging the pendulum back to at least some level of balance.
Good stuff. So that's great. And I'm learning a lot here. And a couple times I heard about college versus the trade. So maybe we could talk a little bit about that to the, in terms of the young kid who's coming up out of high school, he's not really sure what to do. Some days I'm thinking, I'm not really sure what I want to do when I grow up either. So I could totally relate. So, what advice, Greg, do you have to someone who's looking at trades versus college?
So to clarify, I am not anti-college. I am college for the right folks. And everyone does not and should not go to college, especially if they don't have an inkling of what they're doing yet. Maybe when, males especially mature later than females. I mean, that's a statistic that you can't, I think that's an actual scientific fact or close to it. Guys can't decide at 18 years old what you want to do for the next 50 years. I mean, it's just not reasonable. And to your point earlier, Tony, you were encouraging your kids to get out and kind of experiment, for lack of a better word. I think that's sound advice. And I think that what I've had success with in my history is inviting young folks to come and do a 2-week ride along, come and see what our technicians actually do to see if that's something of interest. I had a young man who we met while he was finishing high school. I had him come up to Charlotte for 2 weeks, put him in a truck with one of our technicians just to see what the day in the life looked like. And because the guy was going to go to college because he didn't know what else to do. That was his words, not mine. And he's a great technician now. He's in building automation. He's a systemic thinking guy. But it all started with that little bit of exposure to a day in the life. So I encourage, obviously you want to get signed off with your insurance people and all that to have somebody in the truck that doesn't work for you. But having exposure other than, social media, like what does it really mean to be up on a roof with a crane? And Tony, you do a good job of capturing what happens on your job sites with the equipment delivery and installation. But it's a different thing when you're up there and it's 20 degrees and that wind's blowing and that crane, you see that piece of equipment swinging in the breeze. It's just a whole different, and it's a rush for those who get it. So if you can expose people to some of that, I think it helps them with a decision versus just having to make a blind choice. So I encourage that.
Mm-hmm. How do people get in the truck? Do they just pick up the phone and call companies, you think, Greg? Or
so we're a horrible industry about self-promoting ourselves, because I don't know why we're hesitant to tell people about the cool businesses that we're in. It goes back to grassroots campaigning, grassroots efforts. Like, I've met people at Outback Steakhouse who are running food, who I thought had a little spark, and I would invite them to come join us and see what we're all about. It's the young man at the Autobell car wash that, had a really a nice work ethic. You saw him popping around the car, making a difference. It's the kid at your church that has a good family, and he or she just doesn't have that spark yet of what they want to do. Grab those folks by the arm and invite them to come with you. If we all did that, technicians, pipe fitters, welders, to Andrew's point, plumbers, dryers people, dryer appliance people, just grab them by the arms. It's going to take one-to-one guerrilla combat to get this thing caught up. But if we would make a more concerted effort, I think we could get there quicker.
I like it. Good stuff. Andrew, your take on any advice you would give to, someone thinking about college versus the trades, and how to kind of make that decision, first steps there, or anything else you want to touch on that we've talked about here?
Yeah, I have a lot to say on it, but I know it's a short live, so I'll try to keep it condensed here. So I went to college for 4 years. So I have a college degree, and I came out more confused coming out of school than when I was in school. And in my journey, and a lot of people's journey, is just what was spoken about in your household. Well, just go to college. Okay, I'll go to college. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I started off as a programmer. I was doing C++ programming in a lab, and I had to take all these advanced calculus courses. And I was like, this is not me. Like, this is not for me. And then I went into business, and then I minored in finance, and then I went into IT, and then I went into selling tools and equipment to the skilled trades because of a 9/11 event that some of you know. So I jumped around from I just didn't know what I wanted to do, and no one really directed me. No one really helped me. I just kind of found my way, and I found sort of my passion, but nothing set me up in school for real life. It didn't set me up from a money standpoint. It didn't set me up for sort of my vision of where I wanted to go. I kind of figured it out myself. And this is just me. I kind of floated around in college. And, look, lucky enough, my father was a hard worker, was a small business owner, and he was able to put me through. And, and I give him a bunch of credit for supporting me. But my experience is I just didn't get enough out of it. So before a kid is about to sign on that dotted line for that 6-figure loan or whatever it is, or for whatever school, they need to start thinking about what path do they want to take. And if you take that college path, what are you interested in, and how long is it going to take to pay that back? Because once you come out and you have that debt, how long does it take to pay down that debt? And then on top of, someone goes to, buys a home and gets a mortgage, there's more debt. If someone goes to a graduate school, it just keeps following you, and it just does. And I've seen lots of people that I know that just can't get out of that hole, and it digs you deeper and deeper. I have friends who majored in certain degrees and then came out, spent all this time and money, and they just said, this is not for me. Or went into something they just weren't even happy with. So there's a lot of that too. So I think kids need to figure out before they get in or or think about college, what other options are available? The trades option, right? So there's less debt. It's not as expensive if you go to trade school. You could start making money right away. You're learning a skill that's in high demand.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't think there's enough information for kids, at least when they're sitting down. I said it before, sitting down with guidance counselors. It's not, here you go. Here's the information about the trades. You can be an HVAC, you could be a welder, you could be an electrician. I don't think that discussion is really happening. And I think that's why kids are being kind of led into college. And I'm not anti-college, as
Totally
Greg
get
said.
it,
He said,
yeah.
I am not anti-college. I think it's for the right people. If you want to be a doctor, like, you need education,
Right.
but it's not one size fits all. It's just not right for everybody. And I just think putting that other option as the trades is something that needs to be put in front of kids and let them make the right choice for them.
I love it. Great advice. And I totally get what you're saying. You know, I too went to college, and I am not at all anti-college, but I had no plan either. And I just jumped around. And I'm sure somebody at the time pulled me aside and said, look, you really ought to have a plan. I'm like, nah, I'm going to go out drinking. I don't think that go to the bars, you know, in college, because that was more fun to me at the time. And, you know, so I guess what I'm taking from that and from my experience too, is it's great to have a plan. And even if you're going to go to college, you think you want to be a mechanical engineer, go spend some time with some mechanical engineers and see what it's like. Like Greg said, you're sitting in that truck and you might be thinking, this is not at all what I thought it was going to be. Boom, you just saved yourself a whole bunch of headaches. And then you might find something that really sparks you and be like, wow, this is great. I never thought of this as an option. But I think, Andrew, what really stood out to me is we need to make it available, all the information, right? Like for me, when I was in school, I went to college, and I'm the poster child of how not to go to college, right? I changed my major 5 times. I had no idea. I didn't grow up. My parents they weren't into college. We just didn't know how to do college, right? And I didn't know who to ask. And there was no, there was this thing called the World Wide Web, which just started, right? That, you couldn't really find a lot of information on. So I had no clue. And I knew in engineering school, I wanted to go into sales. For some reason, I just always felt like I wanted to do that. And there was nothing on sales jobs for engineers. I just by a fluke happened to be talking to my guidance counselor one day, and I was about to accept this manufacturing job, which I did not want to take. And he said, there's a guy from Train Air Conditioning giving a seminar in an hour, and he handed me a flyer about sales engineers. And I was like, what's that? I never heard of that before. And then there you go. Now I'm here 25 years later because of that moment. But like engineering, as far as sales and engineering from MEP, from HVAC, it's the same thing as a skill trades. Like it's not talked about very much. Like you don't typically see that talked about. So I think overall as an industry, we could do a better job of that. Michael, your opinion on all this stuff, college?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
I'm not anti-college. I'm not a college graduate. I went through the school of hard knocks via family. My grandmother's cousin owned a heating and plumbing company that I worked summers at in high school, and then transitioned into the commercial HVAC industry, because when high school was over, I wasn't going to go to college. My boys are 25 and 20, as I told you. My wife and I's want for both of them was to go to college. Although we made sure that they had a firm work ethic and stuff growing up. My 25-year-old graduated high school in 2016, was finishing up in the COVID time of spring of 2020, came home, sat around till about the 1st of July. We're in the middle of COVID. I'll never forget this day. He walked downstairs and said, Dad, I think I want to get into your industry because you guys are the only people that are working. And, Sayonara, he's off to a great career in our industry doing that. My youngest was a 2020 high school graduate and is now at JMU, go Dukes, best football team in Virginia. And he found his why.
There's always one in the bunch. There's always one in the bunch.
So I'm writing a lot of checks to colleges, even though I never went there. But
right.
And my youngest, his freshman winter, ended up coming home and got an internship with James River Equipment, who's the John Deere rep. and the
Mhm.
Mid-Atlantic area. And so he's parlayed that into a deal that he's every summer and winter, because of his work ethic and rotating around, that when he graduates from JMU with his business degree, he's going to go work for John Deere, which is not necessarily construction industry. It is. I mean, he's the equipment that clears the land, that does all of that stuff. But again, I think it's the right fit to the right person. Both of my kids went to college. They're both in trades types of industries. I certainly want my doctors, lawyers, financial guys, my architects that are building the buildings that I sit in I want all of those guys, if they're passionate about that, to go get their degrees. But of my five, like my clique at a high school that I went to, 4 of the 5 of us went to college. Only one of the 4 that went to college actually ended up doing what he went to college and got the degree in.
Mhm.
The other 3 incurred 6-figure debt and aren't even remotely doing anything close to what that degree says on their wall. And I think that 75%, if we were to take an aggregate, everyone that goes to college, and Andrew, you may know better than I do in this percentage, but I would say close to 75% of the people probably don't end up doing what their degree. They may have a mass communications degree or liberal arts degree or something. And those 75% of the people that are there for 4 years incurring debt, still not figuring out what they want to do for the rest of their lives. And if we had the better conversations when the kids were younger, if we didn't have a stigma around the trades programs when they were younger, that we saw the benefit and the real conversations of what a trade life can give you, because it's not just working with your tools. There's project management, there's estimating, there's tools, parts departments, there's a litany of different places that our trades can take you that aren't necessarily the boiler room Bob person. And I think all of that information getting to those younger generations can excite them, because you can take what a kid may be good at, or what you saw to Greg's point, that you see him at church, or you see him playing on a baseball field, and you see a kid who's very analytical and asks a lot of questions about why and things of that nature. And you go, hey, man, are you going to college? No. Hey, you want to come in here and learn about how being an estimator, because you're very detail oriented and, want to go do that. So seeing the flowers as they grow around you, and what those flowers could be, is our job as adults, to try to help guide those kids, because they don't know what they want to do.
Hey, Tony, just to kind of tag on to what Michael was talking about, earlier this week, I posted some information on my LinkedIn profile about comments from a group of high school kids that were able to go on a data center tour. I'm part of a group called the Nomad Futurist, and the Nomad Futurist arranged a tour of a high school crowd, high school students, took them into a working data center out in the Bay Area. And we got like 35 or 40 comments from these kids on, let me say this first. The purpose of our group is to create awareness around what a data center is, what it takes to support data, electrical, mechanical, whatever, networking, the whole piece of the pie. These kids were blown away, because all they knew the internet was behind the screen of their phone. They didn't understand all of the different components. So, that goes back to my fondness for awareness and creating awareness. If you show people, and the comments were so intriguing, like they didn't understand what the cloud was until they saw this room full of servers. And they're able to start to see how things are put together when they can go on these tours, and you create that awareness. So, part of the James River experiment that Michael's kid did, what a great thing, farm, construction, all that equipment comes through that company. And that's just one more tentacle of the big octopus that the trades are. It's equipment. It's, to Andrew's company, it's tools, and supporting the people that are doing the trades have to have tools. They have to have equipment. They have to have everything. And there's so many different ways to be involved. So I just wanted to throw that out to a real life example of how that awareness really spoke to a bunch of young kids.
Oh, that's great. Absolutely. Okay, this is awesome. This is great stuff. So we got a few minutes here. Before we close, I want to just give a quick voice to the MEP community here. I asked a friend of mine, Scott Campagna, who's in that industry, and it's so funny, like all the issues we're talking about, like from a skilled trade standpoint, from like in becoming a sales engineer, it's the same in the MEP industry. So it's just the overall like HVAC deal overall is like getting the word out. Fun fact, this may come up in a minute here when we do some questions. The average age of HVAC mechanical engineer is 41. So
Wow.
if you're in the right? So if you're in the what is the two generations we're trying to reach are 38 and under. Where do they hang out again? Not to beat the whole social drum, but it's just the truth. It's where people are at, whether we like it or not. So like it's from an MEP standpoint more than as much as the skilled trades, you know, getting on social, telling people what we do. You can find very little information about MEP in the HVAC world on social. You know, some of the comments that my friend, so I asked Scott Campagna, who's a buddy of mine at IMEG, and he said, yeah, you know, it's just not that well known as an option for mechanical engineers. He did say one interesting point he had was, you know, the cost of entry, like from a salary, is a little bit lower than other engineer jobs. And in the long run, it's higher. And to start your own business as an MEP is a lot less expensive than starting a contracting business, something that could take a lot of capital, you know? So there's that angle of it too, which I thought was interesting. He was talking about ASHRAE could do more. That's our, you know, everybody knows ASHRAE is, could do more about getting out there and social. And he mentioned the ACE Mentor Program of America. If you don't know what that is, that's a great organization that goes into high school and teaches kids about architecture, construction, engineering. www.acementor.org. If you want to get involved in that locally, I know they're always looking for volunteers, and that's a great way to show kids, you know, with hands-on stuff. And I think they do stuff like Greg's talking about. They go out and actually tour facilities. I love that story about the data centers, by the way. That's great. So let me see if there's anything else I wanted to mention here. You know, we talked again. I wanted to just show this slide here real quick. Where is it? Here it is. So, you know, I put this up about 7 months ago, Greg, when you and I were on the call. I had to update it because it's gone up so much. But, you know, these are just common hashtags from one social platform. Like I was shocked when I started getting out there. And like when I started this a couple years ago, my boss asked me, what about starting a podcast? I'm like, who's going to listen to a podcast on HVAC? Right. And now, you know, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just didn't know, like, I didn't understand. You know, you look at some of these things. So from left to right, searching for mechanical engineering, this is just on one platform, 1.5 billion views, right? That's a lot of people. HVAC hashtag 5.2 billion views. That was 4.2 billion when we did our show. Greg, this is on one social platform.
Are you saying that we created 1 billion views?
We're so good. We created 1 billion views. Absolutely. I think it was all Andrew though. And then Skill Trades 1.1. That's right. Skill Trades 1.1 billion views. So the point is, like, this stuff's out. Like, people do want to consume this content. It is out there. You know, some of the social media platforms. Andrew, touch on that. What are the most popular ones today for these kind of this kind of content?
I'm sorry, the most popular platform?
Yeah, social media platforms that you see with a lot of HVAC skilled trade type stuff on them.
TikTok, YouTube Shorts, I would say.
For sure.
You know, those two kind of go hand in hand. You know, a lot of kids are on Snapchat too. A lot of kids.
Are they? Yeah, that's one I don't know about.
It's a younger generation, but a lot of them are there. But you know, typically like a TikTok or a YouTube short, a lot of kids are there's just unbelievable amount. And I see my son just kind of scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. You get lost in the feeds. But if you can capture that one kid and make that one kid think, it's whoa, wait, what's this trades thing?
Yeah.
And then, you know, considers the trades path, it's a win. Just
Tony, I'll tell you that to go along with Andrew's thought, the kids that are on Instagram that are, and this is HVAC specific because that's where I live. There are some really high energy, good craftswomen that are showcasing their work and showcasing their talents on Instagram. I think that's another great source for the trades to do their thing. And the folks I'm talking about are millennials that are on there doing this. And I follow them, and the quality of stuff they're showing and the detail that they're showing and the pride they're showing in their crafts is really something to be enjoyable.
100%. Well said. So awesome. Well, guys, this was great. I'm so glad you came. We definitely need to do this again. Another resource is, Greg Crumpton has a podcast called Straight Outta Crumpton. So you can go check that out. It's all HVAC based. I've listened to it. I've been fortunate enough to have been on there. It's awesome. Thank you, Greg. Andrew is available on LinkedIn, and you could probably find your other platforms on there. Is that correct, Andrew? Anything else you want to talk about as far as connecting with you? Or
Yeah, obviously YouTube, LinkedIn is big, and TikTok. I also do have a foundation called STACK, the Skilled Trades Advisory Council, which we're doing good things with. It's 9 of us, and we're going to make a huge impact when it comes to the skilled trades. So stay tuned to that.
excellent stuff. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel or podcast in the future, send me that info, Andrew. I'll put it in the show notes so people could have links to all that.
Sure.
That sounds great. So, Michael, thank you for joining us too. Any last words?
No, I mean, not really. Thank you guys for being here today for this event, this marathon. I know it's been a long Friday for you guys, and I'm again humbled by the audience and the cohorts that I was able to do this with. I would just leave, whether you're trying to get MEP engineers or whether we're trying to get trade technicians. Really, when we're talking about youth, inspiring them and helping them find their why is going to be critical to where we go moving forward. And it took me till my mid-20s and a great leader that I had to help me find my why. He took me on a call with him to a bread maker's facility in Roanoke for a first-generation American who had spent tens of thousands of dollars trying to solve humidity issues in his facility. And I'll never forget Dave Pearson, one of the greatest leaders I ever worked for, was a Navy guy. He's retired now. Took me in there with him on that call, and this first generation American looking at him and said, "Mr. Pearson, simple bread maker, help me make my bread." And I remember Dave, when we left there, said, "Michael, we're going to resolve this for this guy because this is how he makes his livelihood. I want you to remember that your why every day is not heating and air conditioning. It's the people that we serve." And I had a moment this past summer with my youngest, who's at JMU, who does the James River equipment stuff. And we went to an intersection at home, and we stopped and looked at a cornfield. And I paused there for a minute, and he said, "Dad, there's no red light or green light. Why are you not going?" And I said, "I want you to look at that cornfield, son." I said, "Because there's chances, if this was Harrisonburg, you helped a farmer plant that corn. You gave him a tool or something that helped him plant that corn. That corn's going to then provide for his family and multiple other families. And the money that he makes off of selling that corn is going to come back to your business and all the other local businesses. At 20 years old, I want you to know your why. I don't want you to wait till 25 or 26 to find out your why." And so I would challenge all of us in what we do every day. If we want people to do what we do, to try to inspire them, help them find their whys. And when we're passionate about what we do every day, then it comes out in what we do, and people want to be around it.
Well said,
Excellent.
Michael.
So,
Amen. Great way to close. Thank you, Michael. Okay. Thank you, Greg, Andrew, and Michael. We really do appreciate your time, and everybody watching, we so appreciate you hanging in there and watching with us today. So the next PDH show is at 2:30. We're going to talk about understanding heat pump and air conditioning ratings. So again, just leave your browser open. Before we do that, we're going to do a giveaway here. Greg, Andrew, and Michael, you're welcome to stick around and help with that. We're going to take just a 1-minute break. I'm going to play a little music. Then we're going to come back and ask a few questions, and we're going to give away a couple of these cool Otter boxes. And Greg, you've got some battery chargers too, right?
I do. I have these little phone chargers, and I only give these away because these actually work. They're not a one-hit wonder. So these are rechargeable, and they will hold a charge.
Good. So this is going to be a double giveaway. So for this one, you're going to get a mug and a charter. So stay tuned. So we're going to put on some music here, just a two or 3 minute break, guys, and then we'll come back on. And again, thank you all for being here, and thanks to everybody for watching. Appreciate you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.